Greetings everyone. You are welcome to the Feeders Feed on Word of Triumph Television. In this edition, I want to do something very simple, which is to explain the three types of tithe in the Old Testament. It is important to pay attention as I do this, because there seems to be some misunderstanding or confusion in relation to this subject. There are three categories of tithe in the Old Testament. First is the tithe for the maintenance of the Levites or full-time ministers in the house of God. You will find this in Numbers chapter 18, verses 21 and 24. This is the first 10% that is given to the priest and the Levite. This is the 10% taken from the whole, which is the 100. It is meant for the maintenance of the priest and the Levites. The poor, the fatherless, the widows, and the destitute have no business with this tithe. Now, the second tithe. The second tithe is the tithe for the national feast and sacrifices. You'll find this in Deuteronomy chapter 14, verses 22 onward to 27. This is the second tithe. After the first 10% is given, God told the people to give another tithe from the 90% they have left with them after giving the first tithe. Each of them will eat this tithe in the presence of the Lord in the first 2 years according to the Hebrew calendar. Remember, this second tithe is taken from the 90% they have left after giving the first 10%, which is taken from the whole of the 100%. This second tithe is eaten by the givers in the presence of the Lord within the first and second year according to the Hebrew calendar. The third tithe. The third tithe is tithe for the poor, the fatherless, the widows, and the destitute. You find this in Deuteronomy chapter 14, verses 28 and 29. Deuteronomy chapter 14, verses 28 and 29. This third tithe is still part of the second tithe, only that in the third year, which comes after the first and the second year, the givers of this tithe will share it with the Levites, the poor, the fatherless, the widows, and the destitute. That is in the third year that comes after the first and the second year according to the Hebrew calendar. Now, after the third year is over, the givers of the second tithe will have to eat it again during the fourth and the fifth year. During the fourth and the fifth year, after which they will share it again with the Levites, the poor, the fatherless, the widows, and the destitute in the sixth year. This is how it goes in the first and the second year of the Hebrew calendar. They have the tithes, that is for the national feast, where the givers will feast on this tithe in the presence of the Lord. And then on the third year, according to the Hebrew calendar, they will give another tithe from their 90%. is given within the third year according to the Hebrew calendar is same with the one that is to be given within the sixth year. In this third one, they share it with the poor, with the widows, with the fatherless, with the destitute. This is the tithe for the third year. After the third year, they will have a repetition of the same tithe they gave within the first and the second year, that is meant for the national feast. They will have that one within the fourth and the fifth year according to the Jewish calendar. When they are done with that, within the fourth and the fifth year, they will have a repetition of that third tithe within the sixth year. Now the difference is, in the sixth year, they will not only share this tithe with the poor, the widows, the fatherless, and the destitute. They will also share this tithe with the Levites. They will include the Levites. That is the difference. Now, after they have gone through this routine within the 6 years, according to the Hebrew calendar, what happens on the 7th year, which is the year of God's release, according to Deuteronomy chapter 15, is that all of them, the giver, the Levites, the poor, and the widows, all eat these tithes in the presence of God. They will all eat these tithes in the presence of God. All of them in the 7th year. Only that this time, they will in addition release their slaves and forgive the debts of brothers. Again, the first tithe, 10%, is meant for the maintenance of the Levites and the priests. This 10% is taken from the whole, which is the 100% of whatever they have. The second tithe is meant for the national feast. The givers within the first and the second year, according to the Hebrew calendar, they feast on this tithe in the presence of the Lord. In the third year, you have the 10th tithe. The 10th tithe is given to the poor, is given to the widows. They share with the poor, the widows, the fatherless, the destitute. In the 4th and 5th year, according to the Hebrew calendar, there will be a repetition of the second tithe, which is meant for the national feast. The givers of this tithe in the 4th and 5th year will feast on it in the presence of the Lord. On the 6th year, according to the Jewish calendar, there will be a repetition of the tithe that was given within the 3rd year, which was distributed or shared with the poor, the destitute, the widows, and the fatherless. There will be a repetition of that tithe in the 6th year. The only difference is that in this 6th year, the Levites will also be included In other words, the tithe from the 90% will be shared with the destitute, the poor, the widows, the fatherless, including the Levites. Now, on the 7th year, which is known as the year of God's release, as stated in Deuteronomy chapter 15, the year of God's release, the 7th year. In that 7th year, the tithe that was given in the 6th year, that was shared with the widows, the poor, the destitute, fatherless, including the Levites, will be repeated within the 7th year, according to the Jewish calendar. However, there's going to be a little difference this time, in the sense that within the 7th year, they will release their slaves and forgive the debt of their brethren. Whenever you hear about 3 kinds of tithes, 3 categories of tithes in the Old Testament, these are the tithes of tithes I just explained. Thank you for viewing and for listening. The Lord add to this understanding.